10 to the top of the hour, and it means it's time for our tropical update. Let's check in with Carl Parker. And Isaac was such a slow mover, and Leslie seems to be moving so slow also, Carl, because there's nothing to push this thing along.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A very slow mover early on and a very large system. We think it is going to pick up speed and intensity as it nears Bermuda here by the end of the week. A 65-mile-per-hour storm right now. It's working to the north at 5 miles per hour. There's the visible satellite picture. We're getting a really good look at the character of the storm. And like yesterday, the center of the storm is not where most of the thunderstorms are. They are displaced off to the south and to the east. So there's some shear here, some stronger winds that are coming through and blowing those thunderstorms away from the center. That will continue to be the case, so we expect slow intensification for the next couple of days. But the Hurricane Center does bring the storm up to a Category 2 as it nears Bermuda. Now you see there's a large area of uncertainty here, and Bermuda is a relatively small group of islands, so it may be that the core of the storm, the very worst of the storm, does not pass directly over Bermuda, but it's a very large storm, so it's hard to see how they do not see some very serious impacts by the time the weekend rolls around. I want to show you where Bermuda is. It's about 640 miles to the east-southeast of Cape Hatteras, and we'll zoom on down. The total area of the islands is actually a bit less than that of Manhattan Island, and it's home to about 65,000 people, and so certainly of grave concern to these folks if the storm does pass right overhead, and that is a possibility. Now here is the GFS computer model, and this is one of our two most reliable models. You see how it brings this very large storm up, so we start to see the impacts perhaps even late Friday, certainly into Saturday morning, and then it gets worse and worse if it happens just like this into late Saturday and early Sunday, and then the effects could continue right through the day on Sunday with such a large storm. Now the GFS also takes the storm up towards the Canadian Maritimes into Nova Scotia and then into Newfoundland, and we certainly would see impacts in terms of high waves and some wind there in New England. Now here's another of our very reliable models. This is the European model, and it shows a slightly different solution in that it takes the center of the storm to the west of Bermuda. Again, we still would see impacts there in Bermuda because it is such a large storm, and then takes it more up towards the southern part of Nova Scotia, and you see how close here it gets to parts of New England, so we cannot yet rule out more direct impacts here in the U.S., but we think that the greater likelihood is that the storm will move up towards the Canadian Maritimes, and that we'll see peripheral effects, and one of those effects is going to be high waves. And this is a wave model from NOAA. You can see these large waves, these large swells being generated and spreading outward. In green here, we're talking about several feet. That coming up into the northeast, especially later this week, but we'll see the high surf really developing over the next couple of days, and that's going to be all up and down the East Coast. Mike, Maria, back to you.
Carl, thank you very much for that.
All right, time to